thank you all for joining us today. Today we are going to talk about managing your money, budgeting, and banking. So today in this workshop, we're going to talk about the importance of budgeting and prioritizing your expenses, how to develop a budget that works for you, some different banking options, and the details of bank accounts. So just to start by saying that for many of you, this might be some review. Many of you probably already know a bit about budgeting and banking, but we want to give some tips as budgeting and banking are a core piece of managing your finances. We're going to talk about developing a budget and developing a budget that works for you. So we start with budgeting often because knowing your budget, knowing the money you make and the money you spend is really a core of your financial management. It's, as many of our coaches will tell you, it is so important for you to help achieve your financial goals. And it really helps you understand what steps you'll need to take in order to get to those future goals that you're setting for yourself. So just to review, budgeting is important, one, to help you make a plan for your money, right? It doesn't matter how much money you have. A budget is going to help you look at the money you're receiving, look at the money you need to spend every month, and make plans for what you're going to do with anything that's left over. So your budget will also help you predict what you're going to need to meet your expenses. So even if you're not working right now, or if you don't have a lot of income coming in, by making a budget, it will give you an idea of what you're going to need to be able to cover all of your costs. And lastly, it's really helpful to help you think about if there is extra money left at the end of the month after you meet all your expenses. Helps you decide what you're going to do with that savings, how you're going to save that money, whether it be towards planning for an emergency, having an emergency fund, or putting it towards some of your goals. And we'll talk about goals in a bit. So the first thing to think about, even before starting your budget, is to think about some of the goals that you have for yourself and for your family. So we usually look at goals in kind of a few different ways. We look at short term, which is goals that you can achieve in the next few months to a year. And then we look at long-term goals, which are goals in the future, usually 1+ years, things that might take more time to get towards. So your goals are unique to you, right? Everybody has different things that they're striving towards, and the same goes for the steps that it's going to take you to get towards those goals. So for one person, their short-term goals might be things like getting a job, or finding an apartment, or purchasing a car, while for others it might look different. Some examples of long-term goals are things like purchasing a home, or saving for eventual retirement, or maybe saving money for your children. So as you can see, there is a difference on how long it might take you to get to those longer-term goals. So there are the two main components of a budget. The main component of a budget is really understanding your money. That's like the main goal, to understand your income, or the money that you're receiving, and your expenses, that the money that you're spending every month. So your income might be things like the money you earn from your job, public assistance like SNAP or food stamps, and any other money that you're taking in every month. While your expenses are things like rent, clothing, food, utilities, or transportation, things that you know that you'll have to purchase or spend every month in order to support yourself and your family. So when you're doing your budget, the thing you want to look at your expenses by themselves, whether you're getting financial assistance or support from an organization or the government. You want to make sure you're writing down every expense, whether you pay it right now or the expenses you're going to expect to pay in the coming weeks or months. So you get a full picture of what you'll need in order to meet those expenses. So after you write down all those expenses and you have an idea of the things you'll have to cover every month, you'll want to prioritize those. You're going to want to list them in order of first, most important, or those things that have to get paid every month. These are considered your needs, right? The things that you need to support yourself, your rent, your utilities, transportation, food. And these are the things that you'll end up when you do your budget. These are the things you're going to want to pay first, and make sure that whatever money is coming in goes towards these most important expenses first. The second group you're going to make with your expenses is things that are important, but might be more flexible, right? The cost could be flexible depending on where you shop, or what you end up, how much you look at different prices. So these are things that are important, but they're kind of second to those top needs. So in this category, we'll sometimes put things like, you can put food in here sometimes, depending, whether you decide to buy everything you need, and then extra food, special treats could go in here, or clothing, thinking about whether you buy brand new clothing versus gently used clothing. That is a way to save money too. And these are just things to consider when categorizing. And that last category, discretionary, are those last things to get paid. A lot of those are those wants, those things you have to treat yourself. And it could be anything from clothing to makeup to going out with your friends. That's kind of that last thing to get prioritized. That being said, if you do have a little extra, there's nothing wrong with spending a little bit of money on yourselves. That's okay, but you want to make sure you're covering your needs before you jump to that group. So now that you have all of your expenses kind of written out, put in categories, the next thing to think about is, are there ways to reduce, right? All of us, myself included, every time I make a budget for myself, I look at my budget critically and see if there are ways that I can reduce expenses here, if I want to put more money towards other things. And so you always want to think about different ways you can do that. So thinking through, are there ways for you to spend less on some of those, utility bills, for example? Are there any utility assistance programs in your city or state? You can ask an organization you're working with. You can ask the local benefits office, or you can ask a coach to help you do some research. Some other examples are, thinking about your phone bill. Are there ways to can you shop around for different phone companies to find the best cost? Can you do a family plan where you have a few people on the same plan and might reduce your monthly bill? Another area is TV. I know if you have young children or family, you want to watch some TV sometimes, but are there ways to, could you pay for internet and use some lower cost streaming services, or use the internet versus having to pay for cable? So, thinking through ways that you might be able to reduce some of those costs. Great. And then some other tips we have on here. Can you carpool at work? Are there a few people living in your area that you can drive together to work using public transportation? Shopping smart, cooking food at home saves a little bit of money. Maybe buying things in bulk with either just your family or with other families. And then, buying used clothing. There's some really great used clothing stores where you might be able to get really great clothing for a lower price. And then just the last tip for reducing expenses is, there are usually free fun things you can do, whether it just be for adults or for children. Local libraries often have free activities. They also offer, tickets, sometimes free tickets to do things in your community there are, with the weather getting nicer, at least I know on the East Coast, the weather's getting nicer now. You can do some things. There's local parks and other ways that you can still enjoy yourself, but not have to spend too much money in doing it. So now we'll talk a little bit about some different budgeting or spending plan tools you can use to track your income and your expenses. And the whole idea is you want to figure out a tool that works best for you. So, what works for me might not be what you prefer to use. So here we'll be able to share a few different options for you. And the idea is for you to try them out and figure out which one will help you feel like you're managing your money effectively. So the first one we'll look at is a spending journal. And we usually recommend this if maybe you're not 100% sure on what you're spending every month. This is an easy thing. You can do it on a piece of paper, you can do it in a notebook, and basically you're just writing down everything you're spending and everything you're making for a few weeks, just to get an idea of what your budget might look like. Another method is the envelope method, right? It's not really writing anything down or keeping track of all your expenses. It's just deciding, setting aside categories and putting money aside for those most important things right away. So for example, like you see here, you might say, I have to pay my grocery bill of $300. Once you get that $300, you put it aside in that envelope so that you have that covered. This is a really good way to make sure you are covering all of those most important needs first before you start spending on those other categories. Then we have a monthly budget. You all might have seen a budget like this working if you work with an organization. This is pretty kind of a standard where you're writing everything, all your expenses for the month, all your income for the month, and comparing the two. We do have templates in English, Dari and Pashto. So if you need, our coaches can send you these monthly budget templates for you in your language. You then have a cash flow budget. It's a little bit, it's similar to the monthly budget, but breaking it down even further, right? So you would basically do a cash flow budget if, let's say, your income is different week to week. Right. So many of us, we don't have the same hours every week. And so this is a good way to plan out for if your money changes. And also it's a helpful tool to make sure that if your bills have different due dates, that you're covering the bills when they come up. And so this, like I said, you'd break it down usually by each week, and you'd be looking at your expenses in that week and your income that you earned for that week. And just last, so you all know, there are a lot of online budget tools. The budgets we just mentioned, you can find all of them online if you're comfortable using a computer or doing things on your phone. There's different options like Google Sheets, mint.com, Good Budget, or Every Dollar. And if you're interested in any of these too, you can contact one of our financial coaches and they could share some of these with you as well. Just a last takeaway, right? For you all is the right budget is the one that works for you. Whatever method you use, it's very important, and it will only benefit you to track the income and expenses you're making so that you can plan out for your future. So for homework, I know I'm giving you all homework, but if you can go home and look at some of these options and talk to your family and make a budget with your family and really try to lay out what your budget would look like so that you can start planning for your financial future.